thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, guys. That's right. It is Friday, October 11th. And today is National Coming Out Day. And of course, you couldn't have National Coming Out Day without National Sausage Pizza Day.
Jason Robert Beck, don't do that.
Yes, it's also General Pulaski Memorial Day, you guys. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So thank you to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. Rico is a little late today. Am I correct on this, you guys?
Seems to be so.
Seems to be so. All right. All right. Dr. T, how you feeling today? You with us, Dr. T?
You caught me off guard. I'm feeling good.
I love
How
it.
are you?
I love it. I love it. All right. We're going to start off with you, Dr. T. We are going to start off with the doctor with the most. He's been writing recommendations longer than most of you have probably even been smoking cannabis. That's right. He's the founder of the CESC and of Medican, where if you are in California, you definitely should be getting your cannabis recommendations from. That's right. It is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Thank you, Jason. Morning, everyone. Afternoon on the East Coast. Happy Friday. So my headline today comes from Psychology Today. The author is Dr. Rito Ottermatt, a research fellow at the Center for Research in Economics and Well-Being at the University of Basel, Switzerland. How medical cannabis laws impact mental health. Study finds positive effects of the liberalization of medical cannabis. In recent years, the legal status of cannabis has become successively less restrictive. In the U.S., access to cannabis has been facilitated in most states since the mid-1990s, whether through medical clearance or through decriminalization of recreational use. However, the liberalization of cannabis is still controversial. While some fear negative consequences from addiction, others highlight the potential medical benefits for people suffering from chronic pain, nausea, or seizures. Whether medical benefits outweigh the potential negative consequences due to recreational abuse is still debated. This study investigated the effects of access to cannabis on mental health. The analysis assesses whether medical cannabis in the U.S. benefits from those groups for which the laws are designed, such as people with certain medical conditions, including those who experience chronic pain. Evaluation of the overall population additionally studies if negative effects through, for example, diversions and addictions dominate medical benefits or not. Researchers analyzed data from nearly 8 million individuals, focusing on the number of days with poor mental health per month. The study did not find any evidence of negative effects on mental health with eased access to cannabis. Overall reduction in poor mental health days was not statistically significant for the general population. The story changes, however, when looking specifically at medical cannabis consumers. In states that adopted medical cannabis laws, medical cannabis consumers experience an improvement in mental health, reporting fewer days per month with poor mental health. The estimates suggest that this group spends 0.3 days less per month in poor mental health due to changes in the law. These findings inform the public and the scientific discourse, debating the trade-off between the values of cannabis as medicine and the risk of uncontrolled recreational use. From an economic standpoint, improved mental health could lead to higher productivity, reduced absenteeism, and lower health costs, especially for the millions suffering from chronic pain. Moreover, as medical cannabis is considered a viable substitute for more addictive substances like opioids, eased access may indirectly help curb the opioid crisis. So we often hear of the potential negative effects of cannabis, such as the relative risk of psychosis or concerns of driving while intoxicated. There continues to be cost and effort in studying these potential harms without producing clear evidence of negative effect. This study proposes the opposite. It finds that cannabis use is both cost-effective and beneficial, at least for those who use it for medical attention. All right, this is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News. What do you think about this study on mental health?
Man, there's a lot to unpack with this, Dr. T.
Sorry, so early in the morning.
Yeah.
We should have had Rico go first with his fluff piece.
Well, Rico is finishing something up, and he'll be with us shortly, Jenny Beth. I mean,
I think this is awesome. I think any studies relating to mental health and cannabis use, obviously, it's been helpful. We've talked about my struggles previously. It's something that's been really helpful in me. So I'm excited to see any studies that can push it forward and increase access and availability and maybe more understanding amongst the medical community, because I think fear is a large reason why you got to go to Dr. Talleyrand, and very few people know what he knows and can prescribe to you because they're scared to learn about it because they don't get it. So it's always amazing to me how brilliant people freak out when they're like, wait, I don't understand that. So,
I think the shot at Nora Volkow, the NIDA, who's constantly coming out with statements or studies showing the negative effects, and it's basically saying, "Hey, overall, it's a positive thing."
Mm-hmm. Dr. T, why do they always focus so much on this addiction component? Because to my understanding, there's no addictive components in cannabis.
Well, THC is believed to be addictive by scientists. It does set off.
They haven't proven that to be addictive, and all the stuff that I've read says that there are no addictive compounds in cannabis.
Well,
you say shit all the time. That's not proven, though, Jason. Doesn't mean that
I'm asking the doctor the question.
You have to define addiction. It's not such a clear definition. If you define addiction as triggering the dopamine response, and wanting to go back over and over again, even when you don't need it, then some psychologists have felt that patients have gone into that and into that pattern, and they call that cannabis use disorder, because you want to stop but you can't. But for most people that I have run into, they don't want to stop. So we don't even get to that question. They're finding benefit in it. They're not finding negative. Their lives are better. And I guess what we're seeing from this study is the same, that at least when it comes to mental health, those who are using it all the time seem to be doing better, less poor mental health days.
Interesting. What do you have to say about this, Dr. Mark?
Whoever told you THC wasn't addictive, the scientists say it is.
The scientists. Interesting.
You can be addicted to water. So it's really a behavioral
I
thing.
would say just as being a human being, you have to be addicted to water.
Addiction is a positive thing too. It's not necessarily all negative.
Okay.
Right, like Diet Coke.
Dopamine systems for a reason.
Oh boy. What do you have to say about this, Dr. Mark?
Well, addiction is very complex. I mean, there is a level of what's referred to as chemical dependency, you know, like with nicotine, there is, a craving and a withdrawal and all of that basically is the hallmarks of addiction, right? Which is a chemical dependency that your body has on the intake of this exogenous substance, whatever it is, whether it's cannabis or alcohol. I think, again, Dr. T mentioned the dopamine network that's in the brain, which is the reward system. Like when you eat like chocolate and you feel good about it. I mean, that's part of that whole reward system. Certainly that plays into that, but the brain is so complex and there's so many things at action. I mean, one of the things with like opiate withdrawal, for example, and I think Dr. T can probably agree with me on this, is that where the opiate receptors are is in brainstem function. So yes, could you like die from opiate withdrawal or opiate overdose because what's driving the regular beat of your heart and the regular action of your lungs, your life critical functions, the cannabinoids just don't act on those functions. So that's one of the reasons why the body can tolerate such a higher dose of cannabinoids versus a higher dose of opiates, right? Because it has to do with the biochemical targets that are in our body where these compounds are acting on. So again, just going back to the definition of addiction and thinking about chemical dependency, when you suffer withdrawal, I mean, again, your body is literally craving that compound. So that is an addiction. You know, with THC withdrawal, I think those of us who've had to, occasionally dry out for whatever, a piss test or whatever, sometimes COVID, or, your body just isn't consuming cannabis. You'll know that your body does kind of reset itself, especially with your tolerance, right? Because what you used to smoke at a much higher quantity, now you can just take one bomb rip and all of a sudden you're, high school high again, You don't really have a dependence, right, Dr. T? Like when you think about dependence, like your body needs that to survive. You've seen people withdraw from heroin and opiates. It's terrible. And you could die just from the withdrawal process. I think Jerry Garcia, was in trying to get clean. And, part of it was the withdrawal. I mean, he had sleep apnea and a whole bunch of other conditions.
His liver wasn't doing good either.
A defining aspect of addiction having to do with your body actually now craving that substance just to stay alive and just to be functioning.
I think we're confusing addiction and dependence.
Yeah.
Because addiction...
I think they're related, though. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
So right, addiction is about, like Dr. T was saying, the dopamine cycle, and usually has to do with early childhood trauma or other traumas and dysregulated self-soothing mechanism. Whereas dependence is a physical issue. You can be dependent on cigarettes, you can be dependent on alcohol, on opioids, on kratom, all of those. Your body actually begins to change its own physiological outputs, and so that's when you have that rebound, and you can actually die as well from alcohol detox. Alcohol detox, in fact, more fatal than opioid detox.
Yes.
Separately, you have addiction, and one can be addicted to video games, gambling, unsafe driving behaviors. That's really a push for control, feeling normalcy, or some sort of self-soothing and comfort, again, due usually to early childhood or early life trauma.
Right.
Just wanted to make that distinction between those incident or addictive behaviors.
And you can be chemically dependent on glucose. We all are chemically dependent on glucose.
Fascinating.
Science Friday.
I love this. I got a few wrinkles in my brain from this conversation. Thank you all so much.
Great. We got a couple of them back in there.
That's right. We're going to roll into a commercial and we're going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
I'll do it. All right, you guys, you know what time it is. The High at 9 head honcho, biggest pain in my ass, Jason Beck, the longest continuous retail operator in cannabis.
Oh boy. Adam, we need to roll this thing up.
And just because we pre-pull him from the shelf every morning doesn't mean that he's not up there with Matthew and Yarrow when we start.
Missouri regulators, you guys, deny certification for a majority of social equity cannabis license winners, you guys. Of the 24 dispensary licenses selected through the lottery in June, the Independent has identified 14 that are likely connected to groups the state cracked down on previously. David Huckins, a disabled veteran from Leavenworth, Kansas, threw his name into the lottery this spring for a chance to win a social equity marijuana dispensary license in Missouri, you guys. In June, he learned he landed one of 57 micro business licenses meant to benefit disadvantaged business owners, you guys. Including disabled veterans, those with lower incomes, and people with nonviolent marijuana offenses, you guys. We need to scroll this up. Wrong way. There we go. The micro business program was part of the constitutional amendment to legalize adult use marijuana that voters passed in 2022. And Huckins was among one of the 24 dispensary licenses and 33 wholesale licenses for cultivation facilities handed out as part of a second lottery held in June. Out of more than 2,000 applicants, you guys. But Huckins wasn't officially in the clear, you guys, until Thursday afternoon, when he received a notice that he passed the rigorous review process to confirm his eligibility for social equity, you guys. For him, it wasn't a surprise, you see, because in a quote, he says, "I got a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs saying that I have a disability rating that qualifies me for the application process," he said. "This one was a slam dunk for the state, I feel like." Hutchins was an outlier with only 7 of the 24 dispensary licenses that managed to get certified by the Division of Cannabis Regulation on Thursday afternoon, according to the division's report. And the other 17 dispensary license winners, you guys, were deemed ineligible largely because of failure to provide adequate documentation that the licensee met the criteria to qualify. 15 of the 33 wholesale licenses needed to create marijuana grow facilities were deemed ineligible as well. Man, oh man, you guys, these guys. And that means that less than half, that's right, 25 of the 57 licenses were actually finally certified. That's a significant decrease from the first round issued last October, when 37 of the 48 were certified. Out of the 11 that weren't, 9 of them were eventually revoked. And while on the surface it sounds like a problem of technicalities, it could speak to the larger problem of the predatory practices surrounding Missouri's micro-business licenses, which the division itself has warned about, you guys. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. In a quote, they say, "My first impressions are that most of the licenses that weren't issued," Hutchins said, "were probably due to people or groups with vast resources that have tried to cheat the system by putting in sometimes hundreds of invalid applications." The division declined to provide the Independent with a list of the certified licenses, you guys, and man. However, of the 24 dispensary licenses selected through the lottery in June, the Independent has identified 14 that are likely connected to groups cannabis regulators have cracked down on previously, you guys. Man, oh man, oh man. The groups include investors from Arizona, Michigan, and within Missouri accused of using disadvantaged people as fronts to gain licenses. The strategy involves recruiting applicants to flood the lottery and increase chances of winning, you guys. Man, these guys, geez Louise, a lot is going on over there in Missouri. The Independent has obtained contracts that these groups have been circulated to potential applicants, revealing the investors are aiming to shut out the disadvantaged applicants from most of the profit and control of the business. That's right. That's what a lot of these social equity contracts do. And Lisa Cox, spokeswoman for the division, said the licenses who weren't certified today were sent notices of pending revocation, you guys. They say that they will have 30 days to respond to the division's concerns, during which licenses may submit records or information demonstrating why the licenses should not be revoked, she said. So we'll see what they have to say about this. You know, we're going to follow this story. And in the first round, it took 3 months after the notices were issued to confirm those that were initially being revoked, Cox said. For Hutchins, the entire situation is problematic, however. Lots of problems going on with this because, for one, he said, it means less growing facilities that the dispensaries will be able to rely on, but it also impacts the dynamic of the micro-business marijuana community. Hutchins hosts weekly calls among the licenses so they can share knowledge and help each other. But man, this just sounds like this is one big clusterfuck. And in a quote, they're saying, the general feeling in the community among other people like myself who aren't connected to big investors, he said. In another quote, they say, most of us feel like this is a social equity program to benefit people that are socially disadvantaged, not a way for millionaires to get richer, you guys. Man, oh man, oh man. What is up with going on in Missouri and all these social equity licenses? And of course, you got the predatory. And I'm just surprised that they didn't reference the Joneses in this, but I can't wait to hear what you all have to say about this.
I'm just surprised that we're still surprised that these programs are becoming what they are, which is, you know, a cash grab for millionaires. Because, yes, what do you need to build out a facility? Money. Mm-hmm. What do they know probably better than the social equity applicants? How to write a predatory contract. Mm-hmm. And what do we know? Like if somebody's offering you $250,000 and the most you've ever had in your bank is $1,575, right? And you are excited. That's a big number. It's $250,000. You're looking at all the big ways, right? And they're hastily entering these agreements, like social equity programs, until that we're actually vetting these equity share agreements and going through the actual contracts and actually looking into the operational structure of the company as well as the profit divisions in any and all contracts, a lot of which aren't provided. We're going to continue to see this program be a fucking joke and be a cash grab for the more fortunate over the less.
Mm-hmm. Man.
Socialist equity, right, Jason?
That's right. That's
Once again, we're watching Jenny come over to Team Socialism.
Oh boy.
No, we're watching Jenny. Jenny is like Captain Social Equity. I don't know how I became that person, but I've got like more social equity advocates than anything.
So social equity is a government system of regulation of corporations and businesses. What that is that's socialism.
I was talking.
It's okay.
What
it's
that
okay
is
to be pro-socialist.
Interrupting.
Happiest countries on the planet are social democracies where they use socialism and controls over corporations that individual human beings can be protected and have a better chance at a good life. It's okay, Jenny.
Said with love, but I disagree with you.
Socialism, and then we'll get you to Team psychedelic communism next.
I'm good on all of that. Thank you. I've done enough psychedelics in my life that if that little thing was gonna twick in the back of my head, it would have happened on deadline a long time ago. But no, I get frustrated with the social equity programs because they rule and figure out everything other than how to protect these applicants. And as I told the DCR the other day, everybody seems to be patting their pockets but my fucking applicants. You have the lawyers doing it. You have the investors doing it. You have investors taking money and putting shit on Biz Buy Sell and getting all these deals for a license that they have no ownership in, selling stocks of your business that they're not authorized to do that in. Because guess what? If I'm 51% of a board, let me tell you how math works. That means I have unilateral decision-making ability. That's why it has to remain 51%, not 49.5%. So I think we need to step back and just realize that until these programs are better operated, they're going to be a very frustrating situation, which is going to be, doing zero good for anyone.
Hey, Jenny, Beth,
pissing me off.
Can you teach us some more math, though, please?
Yeah. You want me to?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh.
What do you want to do? Reduce some fractions?
I want to talk about Marxism. Can we do that?
It's too early, and I've had it with men for the week. Don't start with me, Bubba.
Talk about Karl Marx.
Let's talk about how German, French, English, and U.S. industrialists and oil company heads wanted Lenin to go to ruin the revolution and convert Marxism into Marxism-Leninism. That's what we really need to talk about.
Let's talk about the difference between Leninism and what you guys call Marxism. You guys call communism. How about that?
Oh boy.
I think we need a second show after High at 9. You and
Oh boy. That would definitely be interesting.
Oh my God! Could the after show be called Jason Beck Smoked Out? Because he got high at 9. Now he's smoked out.
Oh boy.
It's called Low at 10.
Low at 10 is great.
Cute, you guys. Well. We're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, the man who had a little bit of stuff to do this morning. And I see that he is rocking his Northwestern purple. That's right, it is none other than the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Oh, God.
What were you doing? Why is it so funny?
Because I can't talk about that. Well, maybe we'll talk about it when
on the commercial break. All right.
No, it's not. Yeah, make sure. No, we can talk about it first. Anyways, let's talk about Chicago. Keep it on the theme.
Oh.
So, Green Market Report's Deborah Borchardt did a wrap-up of the corporate-friendly Benzinga cannabis conference held in Chicago this week and said that the event was fueled by optimism, yet rooted in reality. Cautious optimism within was an overarching vibe echoed by speakers and attendees alike, despite the industry's ongoing challenges. Major themes included a persistent lack of capital, a focus on potential legislative changes, and tensions between intoxicating hemp and regulated marijuana. While capital shortages and lack of consistent funding was a commonly voiced frustration, Bo Whitney of Whitney Economics projected substantial future growth for the U.S. cannabis market, predicting it could reach $48 billion by 2030. California's investment potential is expected to decline. But lo and behold, Texas is rising quickly by 2035. Like, surprise, surprise. I mean, it's 11 years from now, so I don't even know what the fuck that means. We might not even be here in 11 years, but Texas, 2035, they're going to be the leader. Either way, optimism centered around potential legal reforms such as safer banking and rescheduling cannabis, Schedule 3, with discussions on interstate versus intrastate commerce also gaining attention. Emily Paxi of Poseidon Investment Management highlighted a Supreme Court case on the Commerce Clause as particularly important. The conflict between intoxicating hemp and regulated cannabis was a hot topic and was nearly touched on in every breakout session, with debates over Florida's amendment battle for legalizing adult use cannabis versus unregulated hemp. Adding insult to injury in Illinois, where a looming hemp ban, what up, Cole? Where a looming hemp ban was recently delayed, hemp beverage makers took advantage of the spotlight, handing out hemp-derived THC-laden drinks all week, while their regulated counterparts were prohibited from doing the same. Overall, Borchardt said that despite the market's difficulties, attendees expressed hope for positive changes on the horizon, no matter who wins the election. Now, every time that I think of Benzinga Cannabis Conference, I can't help but channel Mr. Weed for the people himself, Catalyst Cannabis head honcho Elliot Lewis's epic mic drop moment last year, renaming them as Chadzinga Mid-Glass House Battle. It was hilarious, and the name stuck because of it. The people that built the industry, my take, have fallen victims to stalled legislation, lack of respect, overtaxation, overpromising and under-delivering at levels no other industry has ever had to deal with. Very few with actual ties to the communities, the culture that started this shit have a say in where it is going these days, and that is a major problem. While it's too early to determine if Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference quite has the power of ever becoming our industry's own Bilderberg group, a growing divide between the haves and have-nots is apparent with a quick glance at this week's keynote speakers and sponsors. Sure, they have a few black and brown faces, familiar legacy operator faces sprinkled in there, but I do have major respect for the ones that I do see there. But I'm beginning to get the feeling that they all invite the same damn people to speak at every one of these things. So is that just me? Right? There's no love lost to the people that they're picking, but you see the same exact black, brown, or like women that are elevated to speak at these things. It's just a bunch of like interchanging chads. So my question to everybody is like, are we putting too much emphasis on the importance of Benzinga, MJ Biz, and other Chad-friendly sanctuary conferences? Or is it essential that they do remain to maintain our relevance in the eyes of mainstream America, politicians, investors, and the rest? I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News. Interesting to hear what you guys think.
Oh, here I come, pick me. Which is exactly what all those people say when they offer to pay to speak at Benzinga. I think if you follow the money, Rico, which you love to do, and look at those people who are speaking at these conferences, and I actually have had many conversations with the people who book the speakers about possibly speaking there, and then they hit you with the price tag. I'm not going to pay to speak. Pay to play speaking muddies the waters on people who are there speaking on what we call merit, which is something that very few people have. Also, if you're speaking at 877 conferences in a year, you probably don't have a lot of time to be working, which is what you need to do to be able to effectively speak on what's going on within the business structures in this industry. So, I mean, I think it's gross. You know where else is a really great place you can find at Benzinga and BizCon and those places? A really predatory investor for your social equity company. So, it's shooting fish in barrels. And now they're giving out, like BizCon's giving out social equity sponsor scholarships to come there, right? First of all, just say, here's a free freaking ticket. Let's not call it all this, right? But second of all, cool, let's take all these social equity applicants, put them in a room, and let these chads just fire away with these predatory contracts.
Like the scholarships, like they pay them to come out, or they pay them to attend. They pay them for a booth. Like what does that look like?
They get a free ticket, dog. They literally just get a free ticket. It's like, here, don't pay $500 to come get ripped off. We'll make sure you get in the door.
So it's kind of like the black people in the stands at Trump rallies.
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe it's
stop the ridiculousness.
Like
that is definitely not the case.
Being at a the Kamala rally, showing up at the Meg Thee Stallion concert. But I think that it's just really interesting, and these events I'm becoming disenchanted with everything, right? Because you guys are getting greedy. Yes, it is a business, totally fine. But if you're putting yourself out there as the #1 cannabis investment conference, maybe have some vetted investors. Maybe make sure that you're not having sharks speak to people. Maybe make sure that the people you have on stage have been in this industry for at least some fucking amount of time and have measurable success. Why don't you look at their tenure at their current company? Is the company losing its ass? Do they have to lay everybody off? Then they should only be able to speak about cautionary tales. I get so frustrated, and I could go on, and I'm not going to do it because we don't have that much longer in the show. But if you want to bitch about all this stuff, you can totally DM me. We can talk about it forever. But I think that they're doing a disservice to the industry, and I don't think that giving out bad information from misinformed people makes us legitimized in the eyes of traditional business and politics.
Interesting.
What about the rest of y'all?
Interesting.
What are y'all thoughts on
Interesting.
Benzinga and the likes, seeing as the bellwether of hope for our industry?
The bellwether of hope. I mean, maybe it is the bellwether of hope because everyone in the cannabis space needs money, and that's where all the money goes.
But they're saying that there's no money. Pretty much.
I'm excited to watch all of this shit
that.
perish.
I agree with that.
Fuck all of this. Fuck all of
Mathieu
this. This is
St.
just a
Germain.
boondoggle. None of it's good. And if we just get back to what's real, is weed, man. The weed plant, cannabis. Like, let's all just remember back. I mean, maybe you're not all old enough, but like for me, like I'll just remember back to the 90s. Joy of just getting a bag. Excitement of watching somebody else's eyes go huge when they smell the terps coming out before I even knew what terpenes were. And the fact that we can just grow weed, and I think that we all need to look at this and see what happened when capitalism, when that buzzsaw of capitalism hit the weed game, because finally the risk to reward scenario was changed, so everybody who had shriveled up little balls, an uncle with a bunch of money, could come into the game. That's
Not
what's
little
happened.
balls.
And we see what happens with capitalism. Capitalism, like colonialism, pours everything out of culture for profit. It leaves everybody destitute and fighting at each other's throats, get to the top of the hierarchy so they can get their boot on everyone else's neck. You can see it doesn't work. It's been illustrated in cannabis how it doesn't work. It's well timed that everybody in cannabis starts to find other people to create works of solidarity with, so we can start talking about capitalism doesn't actually function.
Oh, boy.
And before Jason and Jenny, I love you guys, before you jump on me about this, if we look at the works of Franklin Delano Roosevelt after the Great Depression, if we look at what the government has done several times, like 2008, 2020, all these times that corporate capitalism began to fail, what we had were huge socialist bailouts of Wall Street and the for-profit corporations that we could continue the mirage that this system functions. System, as it is built, does not function. The amount of the near civil war in America is proof of that. Everybody is angry, though most people are pointing their finger at the wrong source. It is a class war. It is not a racial war. It's a war against the gays. As much as I'm not into Abrahamic religion, it's not a war against the Christians or the Muslims. It's a war against the people who hold all of the power and all of the resources and have their boot on our neck. What we need to do is we need to create solidarity. We need to start talking about what the actual problems are, what the actual solutions are. Again, I do a lot of drugs, so I could be wrong.
The actual problem is that we are an industry that is easy to prey upon because people don't take us fucking seriously, right? So that's
Jenny,
why
if that was the problem, there wouldn't be hundreds of thousands of homeless people everywhere addicted to
Can I
fentanyl.
finish? Because I'm speaking directly about the cannabis industry. And when we're talking about investor money and capitalism in this space. So give me just a moment. I know you're upset. I love you and I appreciate your fire.
But in any way, well, I am upset.
Yeah, I know. It's okay.
Right.
But I mean, because we are what we are, we're weed. We are, not a serious industry. We're not whatever. That opens up for people who are sanctioned by the SEC, who aren't supposed to be touching companies, who are the worst of the worst, who just, made this agreement so their ass didn't sit in prison for what they've done in more serious industries that was financial malfeasance, right? So I think that we're open to that and we're making ourselves targets by saying, here, look, here's all of us in one thing. Come shoot these fish in a barrel. Because if you're smart enough to fool the SEC for any amount of time or pull the wool over eyes of Harvard graduates, I bet you're going to fuck that social equity applicant, and I bet you're not buying them dinner first.
What do the doctors think? What do you guys think about this? I mean, because that's an interesting take, like from us, but from a standpoint, like we need more relevancy from a medical standpoint and from a scientific standpoint. Like, what do you guys think about these conferences? Do they help or hurt the industry overall?
Well, I've never been to one, so I it's hard for me to judge. I'm boots on the ground talking to people who are using it. I did get some feedback from those who attended Meadowlands last week in Mendocino County. I think there are about 200 participants at a campground. They were concerned. Their businesses were falling apart. They felt that they had just a year left, and they were really wanting to pivot and saying maybe the money is not in selling this plant. Maybe the money is in the experience that people have when using the plant. And so that's sort of what they're thinking now. But the current direction they're going, they're going to lose their homes in about a year or so.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this, Dr. Mark?
I don't know. It just seems to take a lot of wind out of the sails of where, things need to blow, move things forward, And I'm, it's funny you mentioned conferences, I'm going to BizCon. I think I mentioned that to you, Jason, right? Mm-hmm. So be able to do that thing that you're going to do. And actually this is quite relevant. So remember a couple weeks ago we had Chris Vidala and Josh Sviter on. Yep. Well, Chris and I have been asked to chair a panel discussion about the chemistry of these alternative cannabinoids, like these, just what's going on in all that hemp-derived psychoactive space. Mm-hmm. So I think in a way, it's important. Well, it's good to see this embraced at the BizCon level because a lot of people, they, for what it's worth, they call that the trade show of our industry, right? That's the biggest, largest, unless you know of a bigger one, Jason. I don't know.
No, they're the largest. They're the largest.
Yeah, I think they're the largest. Take it for what it's worth, but the fact that we'll have an engaged audience, and I don't know if it's the right audience, but to inform, particularly legislatures when they go to make these, like Gavin Newsom's ban. You'd think that Gavin Newsom would actually have some people who are dialed in to understand what's going on in this space. Mm-hmm. And properly regulate it. I'm not for the chemical conversion in general. I'd like to just see cannabis prohibition be ended, but let those patients, especially children, who need high CBD tinctures that are derived from hemp. There's no reason to prohibit access to those, right? Unless they're trying to do this Schedule 3 thing and put this into big pharma land so big pharma could profit from that. Let's face it, if a plant extract can help make a kid better, it should not only be lawful, it should be actually encouraged the medical community before taking pharmaceuticals and all these things with all these other conditions. My wife happens to know a student in her school who's severely ill and has cancer in several different organs in his body, and they're just trying to keep things at bay. And he succumbs to sepsis and has nausea from his treatments. And I know that he would benefit greatly from cannabis to control his nausea, because they're sending this cocktail of drugs through his system that just completely devastates him. So I think that, again, just going back to the conferences to tie this together, is that the more the word gets out, these medicines should be available and they shouldn't be prohibited. I think the better. And the more Dr. T's can, get on board with, hey, there's a patient in my office and I could prescribe them this FDA drug, which is suicidal thoughts and all these other host of just different, side effects, that I could give them cannabis and they'll just fall asleep and they won't have seizures, and they won't be nauseous in their medication. So I think the more that word gets out, and maybe conferences is the way to do it. But, you'll see on my story today that, a group of doctors have got together and have recognized that these compounds can really control, if not completely stop cancer. And that's significant, because a lot of people die from cancer. And we need to get the word out, and it needs to be gotten out to get beyond the stigma of, Grateful Dead and Cheech and Chong and just a bunch of stoners, and that this is really medicine that our bodies can benefit from. I think I went on a tangent. Sorry.
It's
No,
all
I would
good.
love it.
You're in good company, and everything you said was amazing.
And we did get a big old super chat from the C Word, who says that C-Cell got some weed money to throw around. FYI, you guys. Yes.
Shout out to Honeycut.
C-Cell.
Anyhow.
All right.
You know, the beginning of the end, was it not? 2018? You know, it was 2018 that Honeycut dropped.
Oh, boy.
It came from nowhere.
Yeah, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Hey.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
3 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show will be up on our website in just a couple of hours. And make sure that you mark your calendars for next Friday, as we will be going overtime after the show. We will be having the researchers from Abstracts come in to bring in some brand new science to the whole cannabis realm, and we will have a live Q&A with those researchers, and we will be taking questions, so you'll be able to type them in the chat and all that. So hope you guys will enjoy that next week.
I'm Cole Preston, and today I'm at Blue Island Beer Company for the premiere of my mini documentary on legalization policy in Illinois. I've been following cannabis policy since colorful Colorado legalized it all the way back in the day, and when my home state of Illinois decided to legalize it, I just became enamored. I wondered, what would it actually look like? If you'd like to see how Illinois fell short in achieving meaningful reform in their cannabis policy, you can watch my mini-doc now at colememo.com/mini-doc.
Yes, Rico, and we are back, buddy.
We are back, and I hope you guys got your blue books ready for the lesson of the week. Y'all know who it is. Breaking us down with a little bit of science for that ass. It's the professor out in New England, where he is.
Oh, no, not the Mets.
Mets fan.
Oh, boy.
Come on, let's go, Mets.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. How do your New England, how do your neighbors out there out in Beantown deal with your love for the Mets there, Doc?
Well, any team that's not the Yankees is cool.
Good answer. Y'all know who it is. It's the professor.
Now, hold on a minute. I'm a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest, let's go Braves.
Got a little rivalry over here.
Oh,
God, the
boy.
Braves.
Of the Baltimore Orioles, baby. The O's, baby. Oh, this shit. All right. Dr. Mark Scialdone, what you got for us today?
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Thanks, Rico. Let's see, just a little moment of science here. I hope everybody got to see the Northern Lights last night. They were like illuminating about half of the country. It's a real active season, you know, that's having to do with the solar flares that are happening on the surface of the sun, and they interact in the upper atmosphere with molecules like oxygen and nitrogen to form this beautiful cascade of colors in the evening sky. So it's going to be active again tonight. So if you weren't able to see them last night, hopefully you can get out tonight. It's one of the true wonders in this world when you see it, and especially if you're under the influence of psychedelics, Matthew. Okay, so today my story comes from Forbes, and it's entitled Cannabis Compounds Show Promising Potential as Anti-Cancer Agents, something that we've known now for quite some time. Again, great to see in the popular press that they're covering this important review. So compounds in marijuana, including THC and CBD, show promising potential as anti-cancer agents, according to a recent review of the scientific literature. The review, conducted by an international team of researchers, found several ways that the compounds in cannabis can affect cancer, including limiting growth and spread of tumors and other benefits. To complete the review, 9 researchers from universities in Pakistan, Portugal, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Romania, and South Korea. A very interesting list of countries there, and there's no Western or European countries at all, noticeably absent as us here in the United States, conducted a comprehensive search of several online databases for scientific literature that conducted the association between cannabis and cancer. The authors noted the search was focused on peer-reviewed articles, review articles, and clinical trials discussing the anti-cancer compounds, anti-cancer property of compounds found in cannabis, namely the cannabinoids. To be included in the review articles, the article had to be written in English or contain information on the mechanisms of action and clinical efficacy of cannabinoids in cancer. Through their analysis, which was published last month in a peer-reviewed journal called Discovery Oncology, the researchers determined that cannabinoids, including delta-9, THC, CBD, and cannabidiol, showed promising anti-cancer effects through a variety of different mechanisms. Cannabinoids, including delta-9, THC, CBD, and CBG, exhibit significant anti-cancer activities such as apoptosis induction. What apoptosis induction is, it's something called programmed cell death, and it has to do with when the cell basically needs to die and needs to be recycled. Autophagy stimulation, which is that recycling mechanism of taking dead cells and recycling them into materials that are basically used to make new cells. Cell cycle arrest. Cell cycle arrest happens in the shutting down of cell division. So what happens in cells is you originally start with one cell, then there's a process by which the nucleus splits into two and it makes two cells. That's called cell division, and so cell cycle arrest is basically shutting that down. Anti-proliferation, it's just a general term for the inhibition of letting cells proliferate. Proliferate means live and replicate and divide. Anti-angiogenesis, that's an area that I've actually done some research in, and that's the ability of cannabinoids to shut down the generation of new blood vessels being formed between the arterial system of veins and arteries that are in your body and tumors. So what tumors do is they reside in tissue adjacent to blood vessels, and they emit growth factors that emit or that start building new blood vessels. So if you can inhibit that, and that's a process called angiogenesis, that's something that's a very powerful way of stopping cancer. And the other is metastasis inhibition. So you've probably heard of tumor metastasis, and that's when a tumor in one part of your body can take hold in various parts of your body through the circulation of cancerous cells and cancer tissue throughout the body. So these are all things that cannabinoids can inhibit. Researchers wrote in the news source called Marijuana Moment, reported on Monday, clinical trials have demonstrated that cannabinoids have efficacy in tumor regression and health in improvement in palliative care. Well, we do know, again, that when patients are undergoing chemotherapy, which is basically running this whole cocktail of chemicals through their body to try to rid themselves of cancer, it does a lot of collateral damage. And cannabinoids could help your body repair itself and get back to homeostasis. We also know from research that I've done is that we found that cannabinoids inhibit the growth of glioblastoma tumors in mice, and that the hydrogenated cannabinoids that we patented actually had better efficacy in reducing those tumors in mice. So yeah, a lot of active research going on in this area. While the researchers found ample evidence for the anti-cancer properties of cannabis, they noted it's not exactly clear what is driving these benefits. Despite the evident anti-cancer property of cannabinoids, from numerous experimental results, the review notes, the exact mechanisms of action still require extensive research. Researchers added, despite the positive outcome using cannabinoids in cancer therapy, there remain significant gaps in knowledge regarding their modes of action, effects on the tumor microenvironment, and the physiology of signaling the pathways they affect. The authors noted that the cannabis had often been used medicinally for centuries, particularly in Asian and South Asian countries, but they acknowledged that the researchers and clinicians today face challenges taking advantage of the medicinal properties of cannabis, including its well-known psychoactive effects, due to regulatory obstacles and a need for more research on optimal dosing. By expanding our understanding of cannabinoid mechanisms and their interactions with cancer cells, we can better harness their therapeutic potential in oncology, the researchers concluded. After reading the review, Benjamin Kaplan, an MD and specialist in cannabis and the author of the Doctor-Approved Cannabis Handbook, says that the science is really impressive. Kaplan explains in an email that highlights the review that cannabinoids like THC, CBD, and CBG show significant anti-cancer potential, including apoptosis inhibition, apoptosis activation, reduction of cell proliferation, inhibiting angiogenesis, and modulating the immune response. That last one's a pretty important thing because remember, part of the toxicity of COVID virus and other viruses in the body is that your immune system is on overdrive. And a lot of times when your immune system's on overdrive, there's a lot of collateral damage in the body. So again, cannabinoids help set that homeostasis, which puts your immune system in check. The review also illustrates the need for continued research into cannabinoids and cancer, including controlled randomized trials to develop standardized therapeutic protocols. In existing research, significant differences in effects are observed on concentration, cannabinoid type, and cancer type, Kaplan notes. For example, THC can have both inhibitory and stimulatory effects on breast cancer cell proliferation, depending on the receptor activation pathways. I did not know that. Dr. T, I want you to comment on that after my story. So cannabinoids interact with multiple pathways, sometimes leading to unintended pro-tumor effects. Again, not know that. This review suggests caution as these mechanisms are not fully understood and require further exploration. Indeed, the endocannabinoid system may play a pivotal role as one of the drivers in the physiology, but we don't have yet determined which elements to stimulate or inhibit based on its effects. So Again, we've talked about this on High at 9 before. I know I've highlighted most notably the work by Manuel Guzman in Spain, who has published very important studies on the anti-cancer potential of cannabinoids. I think anecdotally we know that cancer patients can get relief from chemotherapy and other pains having to deal with trying to kick cancer and depression that you often get. You hear that you have stage 4 cancer, could just throw you into a whole tizzy. I'd be interested really in what Dr. T has to say, because some of these like pro-tumor effects, I was unaware of that. And if you have anything to add, or anybody on my esteemed panel, get out and see the Northern Lights. They're really cool. If you could do it on psychedelics, all the better. Enjoy. This is Dr. Mark from the shores of Lake Champlain here in the lovely state of Vermont, where the leaves are on fire.
Yeah, Vermont, stand up.
Yeah.
Can we see the Northern Lights from SoCal? I'm sorry, stupid question, but geography is not my best stuff. So
Not this time.
there we go.
I think from
Dr.
Tahoe,
Last
I
night
saw,
we couldn't see him with the naked eye, but then if you set a camera up with a 10-second or longer exposure, you could totally see it.
But I want to see it.
I think
T,
from
you wanna-
Tahoe,
you wanna
I
hop
saw
in?
some pictures from Northern California where they were seeing them.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you want to hop in before we devolve into side banter here?
Yeah, I want to hear what Dr. T has to say.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't run across any pro-tumor studies on THC or CBD, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was. Remember, the effect of the cannabinoids are biphasic. And so dosage really does matter. It could be that you're reducing your pain or worsening your pain, depending on what dose you take. And that's why our major research project is called the dosing project, because in the end, it's all about what dose you're taking. So figuring that out is really the key. We've known about cannabinoids and cancer for quite a while. I remember early rat studies, toxicity studies on rats, and it was preventing the rats from getting cancers that they normally get. What dose is good, we don't know, and that's why Rick Simpson, took some of that early information, and because they were toxicity studies, he used the high dose of THC or CBD, whatever was in the plant. And he proposed high dose is what you need to get rid of tumors. But in the end, I don't think we need to know exactly what the molecular activity is. It would be good to know, but I really think that's a play to develop pharma drugs. I think we need to know the dose and the efficacy, and we can do that through clinical trial, through observational.
Yeah, the one thing I'm always leery of, and I was thinking about this the other day because my parents are here visiting, is when you don't know drug interactions and you have patients who are already taking like a handful of Farmies a day, like especially with CBD, right, John? We know that CBD impacts the way that drugs are metabolized in the liver. And even like those studies are done on patients that are just taking that drug, right? But we don't know like what happens. Like my dad takes like 5 different pills twice a day, washing it down with a Bud Light. It's like
yeah. Well, the difficulty with drug interaction is exactly that.
Right.
It's you can't tell, and plus everyone's different. People have different metabolisms, some people, and so really trying to predict interaction is difficult, which is why I support the notion of reducing your medicines, figuring a way to consolidate so you're not taking this cocktail of stuff and then one day you get a reaction that you don't know where it's coming from. So that's what I tell your dad, figure out, how can we reduce these medicines? Cannabis is great for reducing medicines because it takes care of so many things.
And that says that homeostasis, which is what the endocannabinoid system is, kind of like the way of regulating all the systems in our body where these drugs are acting on. Is that, just, again, a simple way of looking at it?
You mean the endocannabinoid system and homeostasis?
Well, yeah, that homeostasis held in place by the endocannabinoid system is the body's own pharmaceutical company, right? So it's
I would say to a chemist, I'd say it's the ultimate buffer, right? Buffers can take on acids and base and sort of keep the solution neutral. It's a great buffer. Is that a good chemical perspective?
Yeah, sure, that works. I used to have a chemistry professor, and in a British accent, he used to say, all questions in chemistry can be answered one of three ways: yes, no, and it depends on the pH.
I hear that. I like that. It depends on the pH.
Yeah, life is all about balance, right?
Yes. Exactly. Even in the
I see what you did there,
world.
Rico. I see what you did there. I see exactly what you did there. All right, we got one more commercial to go. We're going to be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Ah, yes, coming up next. That's right. It's Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She has that southern twang in here to tell you a thing or two about life, weed, economics, business, finance, and whatever her story happens to be about today. That's right. It is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
I'm going to need a longer intro than that because my computer's rebooting. It died. Say some more nice things about me, Jason.
Amazing. Well, while she reboots her computer.
Reboot?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What is going
If you
on?
if you boot right the first time, you don't have to reboot, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you realize that the plug was not plugged into the wall, although plugged into the computer, sometimes you still experience battery death.
You hear that? You hear that?
Well, this is why you don't run off on the plug.
Jenny has a plug issue.
No, never run off the plug. No, I do grow my own Diet Coke. That's true. You can write me in the 2024 ballot as a Republican alternative. Diet Coke and Publix sandwiches for all. And if it doesn't load right now, I'm just going to read it from my phone because this is getting ridiculous.
Yes.
Would that make you alt-right?
Oh, boy.
Jeez Louise, Rico.
Good job, Rico. I like that a lot. I think like to encourage our chat to keep it positive, but this is a shitty story. I'm going to read it from my phone. Sorry, guys. My little written up situation that was ready since 5 a.m. has died. But in a shocking incident out of Portland, a cannabis store employee has been charged with murder following a fatal shooting during a robbery at Lamoda Dispensary. Jason R. Steiner, 34, was arraigned today in Multnomah County Circuit Court, that's a weird word, facing charges of second-degree murder for the death of 18-year-old King Lawrence and 20-year-old Tahir Burley. Court documents reveal that Steiner was in the back room when 3 armed suspects entered the store on October 3rd. After initially complying with their demands, he left the store but returned to the drive-up window where he fired 13 rounds at the suspects as they loaded merchandise into bags, despite surveillance footage showing they were not armed at that point. Steiner reportedly believed one suspect was armed and decided to act. He fired until his gun was empty and then called 911. The weapon he used was a semi-automatic handgun he built himself, which was found without a serial number. Both victims were pronounced dead at the scene, with autopsy results confirming they died from gunshot wounds. Steiner, who had a troubled history with law enforcement, including previous misdemeanors and probation, has pleaded not guilty to the charges. This incident highlights ongoing concerns over safety at the dispensary, which has faced multiple armed robberies in recent years. Authorities continue to investigate, seeking the third suspect to escape. Stay tuned for further updates on this developing story. Steiner was also still on probation at the time of his arrest. So this is a tough one. We're discussing where self-defense and doing your job stops and a crime begins. 2, probably not a great idea for your service weapon to be a 3D printed, I'm assuming, or personally assembled ghost gat. Seems like a bad idea. And this is why we have requirements and regulations around who can secure our licensed facilities, right? And the licensure that they need to hold, the insurance they need to hold. I mean, obviously, loss of life sucks, but I don't believe in robbing people at gunpoint either. I think there's a lot of things to unpack about this story, and I thought it was interesting enough that we definitely needed to not let it go unaddressed this morning. So, throw it to you guys.
Question: this guy was an employee of the store that was the shooter.
Correct.
And was this a licensed store, or was this a trap store, or do we not know?
They didn't specify.
They did not specify. Well,
what was the name of this? Did they specify the name of the store?
La Mota.
Yeah, they're licensed.
They're licensed. Well, this is going to be interesting to see what
in Oregon.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, they've been robbed. It says they've been robbed multiple times.
I mean, I don't think that there's any state that allows for employees to possess handguns while on the sales floor of a weed store.
I think he may have been a security guard, but we'll have to.
But even if a security guard, why would he have a 3D printed gun?
That's what I'm saying. There's so many things that just aren't right about this whole situation.
Lamoda is like one of their biggest chains in the state. So, like, this is kind of a big deal.
Wow, you guys up in Oregon. Man.
Yeah, that'd be like, I don't know, well, shit, Catalyst has a ton. That'd be like something like this happened in that Catalyst.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is so crazy and sad. The loss of life is 100% sad, but I definitely don't condone anyone trying to rob. Just on the same page of what you had mentioned, Jenny Beth. But I'm just shocked that this bud tender we don't know that. You're saying that you think he's a security guard. I'm
double checking right now.
I just can't figure out why he would have a 3D printed gun and not just have like a real real gun.
They didn't specify that it was necessarily 3D printed, but he made it himself, so he could have just assembled it. But I would assume that's probably whatever. Let's see.
I mean, the dude in the picture, I mean, if he has a security guard, I really don't want to make a joke about this, but it doesn't look like he could have caught them if he tried to run after them.
Oh boy. I feel you, man. I feel you, bro. It's a sad world, the state of affairs that we're in today. Doctors,
people are running away. Like, let them take the fucking product, man. Let them run away. Like,
especially with the price of weed in Oregon.
Yeah,
it's so low.
I forgot about that shit too. Yeah,
like it's not there's not a lot of value there.
Well, let's pay attention. This is an 18 and 20-year-old that were robbing the store.
Right, like they must have said something to him, or this dude was having like a bad day, or some shit. Like
no, So what happened was they came in armed, 3 of them, to rob the store. They drug him out of the store. He's saying that his car keys and everything were still in there. He didn't want them to take his car. He thought they were still armed.
So he's claiming the ghost gun.
Yeah.
Dude, this is all kinds of fucked up, man. Like, sorry.
Yeah, it's sorry
if I offended anybody. I apologize. Like it's just dumb. If he's a security guard, it doesn't specify his position of the story. If he's a security guard, why do you have a fucking ghost gun on you in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget the government's role in this too. You know, if there were banks, they wouldn't be doing this.
Facts. Let's get to the root of all of this shit.
Man, oh man. Doctors, any thoughts on this?
Again, sad gun violence and takes a lot of wind out of the sails. You know, people will associate cannabis with gun violence, and that's not a good thing.
Right.
Very, very true. Very true. Rico, question for you. Or Dr. T, did you have something you want to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right.
Ask away.
All right, Rico, question for you. Matthew had to go. Yes. Matthew had to go. You want me to read his story? Or
you can read it. I can read it. It don't matter.
We're already at 10:14. The people can read it.
I can read it real quick.
All right, go for it. You want to read it? Go for it.
Psychedelic mushrooms. I could listen to Mathieu St. Germain, because who knows who he really is. He is the immortal cannabis soldier and time traveler, so I might be him too. But either way, psychedelic mushrooms are getting much, much stronger. And cultivators are turning to genetic sequencing and cellular manipulation techniques to breed highly potent mushrooms, leaving some unprepared psychonauts in distress. So earlier this year, Julian Mathieu, also known as God Emperor Myco, this is such an MSG story, was creating new generations of spores from some psilocybe subtricalis mushrooms that have been procured online and from a popular supplier. He claims to have not been working them for potency, but rather than arrive at a cleaner, more robust genetic structure to fix issues caused by sustained inbreeding. Common in the field that has long been run by amateurs. Interbreed too much, the mushrooms can lack general health, produce lesser yields, and sometimes grow lower strength. After 3 cultivation cycles, the self-taught mycologist who runs the Colorado-based psychedelic research company Imperial Labs decided it was time to try what he had produced. An experienced psychonaut, he was astonished. It floored me. I've never been hit like that by mushrooms, Mathieu says. He consumed them fresh in a dose that would be equivalent to no more than 1.5 grams of the dried fungi, which is significantly below the amount generally required to break through and have a significant trip. I knew that they had to be really powerful because I couldn't get out of my bed for about 3 or 4 hours. The first hour or 2 felt like a DMT experience. It's the type of super strong mushroom trip that people are increasingly reporting. New cultivation methods are making psychedelic mushrooms stronger, and fiendishly potent varieties are kicking in faster and lasting longer. Even if you eat only a fraction of what you thought would just be another variety. Subsequent testing showed that that one batch of Mathieu's mushrooms contained about almost 5% psychedelic alkaloids, which is once unheard of within the genus. Typically, mushrooms contain 1% of these psychoactive compounds, although species like psilocybe azacrurinans are generally stronger, and some varieties within the same genus are even more potent. All right, so just skimming through some of this because it's a pretty long one here. I'm going to the summary at the end. I should have just punched this into ChatGPT, but anyways. Basically, mushrooms are getting much, much, much stronger, and they're comparing this to what has happened recently in the cannabis industry.
Mm-hmm.
My take on this is whenever I have done mushrooms, I am more of the macro dose guy myself, and I like to trip. I don't even like like a little enhance my mood, but maybe that's just me. It's always made my artwork better. It's always made my mood after the trip better. And I enjoy it that way. So I welcome the stronger mushrooms.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from the rest of you guys. What do you think?
I mean, they're just trying to just say basically the same thing that they're saying about weed. The weed's too strong now. Everyone should stay away from it.
It's about
that's funny because there's this huge trend in people wanting to microdose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is just kind of like the opposite, isn't it?
That is you're exactly right about that, doctor. Because microdose, I don't understand why anyone microdoses, but to each their own. But there is
I think okay, so if they have to function as like a school teacher or a school bus driver, or has to work behind a counter at a bank or something, and they can't just be, undergoing a psychedelic experience without completely being able to do their job, especially like you think of a teacher, right? Teacher does not want to be like having a psychedelic experience when you're in front of a class of like 3rd graders, but maybe at the microdose level, and maybe Dr. T could comment on this, there's kind of like a way that it could be, completely high functioning while still having maybe the edge cut off of anxiety or, I don't know.
Well, think about it this way. What are you trying to achieve? Because there's many things you can achieve with cannabis. You can relax, you can get to and go to sleep, or you can get to point of altered perception, right? And psychological perceptual shifts. What are you going for? Some people tell me they don't want to get high. They just want to relieve the pain, or they want to get to sleep. And so coaching them on how to do that with the plant really depends on talking about the active ingredients and what appropriate doses are for you. So this article goes back to dosage. I mean, you can make it as strong as you want, and that just means for some people they're going to take less, and for some people they're going to achieve what they're looking for a lot easier. Either way, it's up to you, the dosage and the safety. It's not a negative thing. It's what we do with every medicine.
Right. And but don't you think in general that the fact that there are more people maybe using it in a microdose way is kind of better than, you talked earlier about wanting to reduce your medicines, right? And so if you're not having to take some pill for treating some disease, but you can microdose and still be able to function, I mean,
it's a great way to use it. It depends on the situation, but it's a great way to use. Microdosing is a great way to use it. It's but no judgment. Where are you going in this life, and I'm here to be your guide.
Mm-hmm. There's a time and place for everything, right? Like if I need my day to be like a little sparkly, I'm depressed, like I'll grab a micro, right, with some like lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, a little bit.
How much, Jenny? Just tell our audience, like, what is a microdose for someone like you?
A 0.25. So I have a capsule with 0.25.
Say that again?
I have a 0.25 capsule. Yeah,
and that's the weight of the total dried mushroom. It's not the weight of the specifically psilocybin by the way, but it's a good way to guess. I've seen microdoses range from 0.15 to 0.2 to 0.25.
Yeah. So I keep it low, but it makes
Jenny,
my day sparkly.
If you wanted to have a mushroom experience, how many of those capsules would you have to take? Like if you're at a festival or a show and you just want to do your thing.
All of them. You got to take all of them.
What do you mean? You take like at least an 8?
No. So I have a friend who formulates those for me, and I keep those for specifically microdosing. If I want to have like a full reset, right, and I need to everything's just all bad, we're super down bad, I need to sit with myself and my thoughts, or I'm going to panic, or whatever I'm doing, right, 3 to 4 grams.
Yeah, I'm all for the hard.
Wow.
That.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm a deadhead too, Dr. Mark.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So that kind of tells you like you could titrate yourself to a low microdose level, still drive your automobile, still make checks at the bank and not overdraw. You could still function, right? With maybe so. In your why are you microdosing? Like Dr. T said, what are you looking to get out of a microdose?
So after years of domestic violence, I was diagnosed with PTSD and generalized high anxiety disorder secondary to that. And so for me, obviously, I am a people person. I enjoy being social. I enjoy networking. It's a large part of what I do. And with that, unfortunately, there are some days where my anxiety is just not the greatest, and I'm not able to be the person that I want to be. So it gives me that little, I call it making my day a little bit sparkly. That gives me that edge.
Controlling anxiety. Controlling anxiety is, I mean, that's what I find with people is that they're microdosing for those reasons. Other people believe that it gives them an extra pep in their step because they're kind of more aware of their environment. I think there's something to be said about that, and not to say that there's nothing wrong with the other end of the dosing spectrum. Like Dr. T said, it depends where you want to go. If you want to go there, you go there. You could always eat more, you can't eat less, right?
Right. Are you trying to see the peacocks on the top of the pine trees or not?
It depends. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to lie and say I'm not just lazy, but I haven't done the research. Yeah, I'll just keep it a buck. I have not done the research enough on mushrooms to understand them enough to just be like, yo, I'm shrooming, I'm about to trip balls, and that's the end of it. You know, it's like I want to learn how to microdose and everything, but every time I get like a little taste of it, I'm like, yo, give me all them shits.
Yeah.
Well, Rico, that's
like
what we
the
call
taste,
portion control.
Rico likes the taste.
Yeah. I think I talk about how much I dislike cannabis events now, right? And I find myself often having to microdose before one of those because then I'm just happy to see you as opposed to, don't talk to me.
Well, Jenny, I want to ask you one other question. So if you're like microdosing during the day, but then you go to a show at night and now you want to get your game full on, does that microdosing in the day? So because one thing I noticed with LSD is that if you do it repeatedly, like a night after night, it's never as good second night as it was like the first night, right? Like you're kind of like you're titrating your system at that point, and like, does the microdosing affect you wanting to or ability to go large later on in that day?
I don't think so. I mean, that's not been my experience with it. I think that, I haven't noticed that. I don't know. Maybe I'll pay attention. But I know exactly what you're talking about, right? A 3-night run, you got to figure out if what you're doing mushrooms the first night, you're doing whatever the second night, because the law of diminishing returns for long range music festivals.
You know, only users lose drugs.
And only man, you don't want to be a quitter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, don't be a quitter.
Right, Jason? Yeah. Quitters never win.
Quitters never win. That's right.
They don't.
On that note, man, it has been a fun episode. Very introspective and very educational today. And the chat, I must say, has been on fire.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So make sure you guys keep your fighting in the comments and not in real life. We do not condone violence or bullying of any form on here.
Unless we're doing it.
We talk shit, we never judge. You know? Either way, thank you all for joining us for yet another week of High at 9 News. You can always catch us live weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love today. Who we have in there today, Jason?
The C word, man. The C word. Shout out to the C word.
Always coming through.
Yes.
C word's been active today.
That's our. Yeah, I was just saying that's our beef plug.
Yeah. Whoa. Pause.
Pause. All that shit.
It's National Sausage Pizza Day.
I'm not touching that shit. But big shout out to everybody else catching us live on the live every single day as we bring you the daily chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. Our vetted correspondent team, big shout out to all of you for tuning in from all over, bringing us much variety of perspective and your respective opinions to the table. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners. We got in the background today. We got Adam.
We got in the building today.
Big dog.
Yes.
Adam, big dog, leapfrog, back there, man. My brother, good to see you back there, and just keep on doing your thing. I believe in you. One day your hair will be feathered again. So, as always, Cannabis is TV, the reason why we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you, too. It has been Friday, October 11th, 2024. The show's over. You've all been with the top industry headlines of the week. Hope it's enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until Monday. And if it's not, pop a couple caps, y'all. Pop a couple caps. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News, America's #1 daily news show when it comes to cannabis, psilocybin, and all of these entheogens and psychedelic experiences. Today we're going to pop things right back out to... Oh, MSG ain't here, right? No, Dr. Mark.
Mm-hmm. You just read his story, dude.
Yeah. Rico be tripping sometimes, man. I don't know.
Rico, he had too many of them caps.
Yeah.
No, it's that ice cream that I had. It's got me all hyped up. You know what I'm saying?
The ice cream.
He had an Oreo and mushroom sandwich.
He had a Joe Biden special.
I'm trying to get some color in the background. There we go.
Dr. Mark's about to tell us to touch some grass.
Well,
they call you Northern Light, boy.
Yeah, so get out and see the Northern Lights, or get out and see the colored trees. You know, the leaves on the trees, those are anthocyanins. Those are the same compounds responsible for the pigments in cannabis. So enjoy this beautiful fall weekend that we have. get out and see the Northern Lights and Google why they exist. Talk to you later.
Y'all have a great day.
Yes. Much
Stay
love,
blessed.
y'all.